Welcome back, guys. So in the last video, I left off by creating this form for our sign up page. Currently right now, we have the visual representation of the form, but as the user inputs their information, it's not being held anywhere. So what I want to do in this video is I want to have a place where we can store that information as the user put in the information so we can send off to the server. So here I have a list of things to execute. I want to first remove the A tag from the sign up component and replace it with the link. Okay. So, okay, that's over here. And as many of you, I imagine, already know, is that in React, we can't use the A tag. We have to use a link. We have to use the link. Okay. And the attribute, we can't use the href. Instead, we use the to. This particular link right here, the purpose is that if they're on the sign up page, and they realize that they have the sign up, they've signed up already, we want to send them to the login page. So we set up a route already earlier, and it was the route for sign in. So that will take them directly to our sign in page. Okay. Now if I save this, I'm gonna get this error here that link is not defined, and that is because link is from the React Router DOM, and we need to import that. So I'm going to do that here. All right. So if I save this, the error goes away. All right. So let me mark that off here. All right. Next, we're going to set up the component state. Okay. So in our sign up component, we need a central place where we can hold all the user's input. Okay. The way we're going to do this is we're going to use from React, there's a hook that's called use state. Okay. So now that we imported that, within our component, we're going to do const, and in brackets, I'm going to call my form state form data, and the method form data, set form data, will be the method that will be used to make the changes of the data for our component state. So anytime we want to change the data for our state, we're going to use this method, set form data. Okay, use state, and we're going to set some default values here, and our state is the state props are going to be the same as what we have for our input fields. Okay, so we have username, and by default it's going to be an empty string. We have email, empty string. Password 2 was for our confirmation password. And we are also going to have two properties called success message and error message, and that's going to hold any errors or success messages that we receive from the server as a response. Success message, and by default they're going to be false. Error message. We are also going to have a loading attribute. This will be false by default. And the purpose of this loading prop is, so it's for applications, you've seen them before. When you send off, say, a form, you have that icon, that spinning icon, right, to tell the user or to tell you that a process is being done in the background. So to hang tight and to wait a few seconds, right? So that is the purpose of this property here, because as we first in our when the user presses the the sign up or the submit button, that will make an HTTP request to the server and could take some time. So in that moment, during that period of time, we want to have an icon, a visual icon that the user can see to know that just to hang tight. Okay. So set up component state. I want to destructure the state. So all these properties here, I want to destructure it. So, because if I don't destructure it, what's going to happen is that throughout our form, if I want to refer to this username property, constantly I'm going to have to do form data dot username. Okay, and the same for all the other ones. Now, to make things, or to make life simpler for us, is we're going to destructure it. So from form data, I want to destructure what? I want to destructure all of this right here. So username, email, password. Let me do password 2, success message. All right, good. So now we can just refer to them individually, just call them directly, username, email, and just directly. Okay. So we destructured our state. Next is we want to add the name and value attribute to our input fields. Okay, this is going to be necessary because this is also going to allow us to use a technique in React called controlled input, or controlled component. Use what's called a controlled component, because typically in HTML, each input is controlled individually. All right, the values are controlled individually, whereas if we have a controlled component in React, we can have a single source of truth, and our single source of truth is going to be this right here, all of this right here. So as the user inputs their information, all of that information is going to be contained within one area, all of that within here, not individually for each individual input, but rather all that information is going to be thrown inside our component state. So to make that happen, we have to provide a name and value attributes for our input fields. So here I have name, and for this input field, this is for our username. So I'm going to give it username. This is email. And this is for confirmation password, which we called it password 2. All right, next is we need to provide a value in addition to the name. This was for the username, and the value it has to be the same as the property name we provided within our state. So we called it username. So we're going to do the same thing here. For the value, is going to be called username. Email. Password. And then finally, for confirmation password, which is called password 2. All right. Okay, so we gave our name and value attributes to each input field. Now I want a way to see, I want to look at this right here, and on the bottom below here, just for testing purposes, I want to see what the current state the current state is. And so that way that also as I'm putting in information, I can see that in real time that information is being stored into our state, our component state. So in order to do that, I want to go down here and I want to do JSON stringify and form data. Okay, that is the name we provided for our state, right? All the way up here. It's called form data, and that holds the information within the state. Okay, so that's what I'm doing here, is I'm trying to output what the current form data is. Let me save that. If I go to the form here, let me refresh that. Okay, all right, this is hard to see here, but you can maybe you can see it's in black text, so it's hard to see. I'm gonna change the color here. Let me place this around a p tag. Paste that inside there. So inside this p tag, I'm gonna give a style of let me see, color. Color is gonna be, let me call it white. Okay, I can't see it yet. Okay, why is that? Color white, white. Okay, here we go. All right, so then we can see it a little easier, right? Okay, so let's take a look. Okay, right now I'm actually typing on my keyboard, but there's nothing. There's nothing. I can't type anything in. I'm actually typing in, and the reason for that is because I have to add an event handler and to our input field. Okay, but right now you can see though. Right now, currently these were our default states. Remember, we set up the username, email, password, and password2 to empty strings, and the others to false. Okay, so this is outputting our current state. Okay, but I'm gonna make a change here, or I'm gonna show you that we're gonna fix that little issue there with that as I input, or as me as a user, as I'm putting in information, that in real time that I can see what our current state is. So in order to do that, we're gonna go to our next step here, which is add an event handler to our the on-change event of our input fields. Okay, so we need to add an event listener to each of our input fields. Okay, so that way, for example, for this first input field here, this is for our username here. I need to attach to this input field an event listener, and for the for listening for a change for input fields, as the user types in, it's called on change. So I'm gonna do on change here, and I'm gonna make that equal. And once this is triggered, once it's a detection is, once user starts typing in, it's gonna trigger. I want to call out a function called handle change. Okay. Right now I haven't created this, but I will shortly. But I'm gonna do the same thing here for my other events. Okay, right here. Okay, so I have an event listener here, and once it's triggered, it's gonna call out this function here, which is a handle change. Okay, and I'm gonna, and by the way, if I save, we're gonna get an error here. See, this handle change is not defined, so I have to create that. So right above our views, I'm gonna have a section here for all of my event handlers. So I'm gonna call that event handlers, and it was called handle change, and all events that are triggered are provided an event object. So as an argument, I'm going to give it get the event object right here, and I'm going to, with the EVT, calling it which signifies our event. And for the moment, I'm going to console log this. So right now, the moment that a user inputs info or starts typing into the keyboard, into the input fields, this should fire off this handle change method, and we are going to console log the information of the event object. So let's give this a try here. Okay, so I'm going to type in something here in the username, and you see in the console we have all this here. Now the event object, as you can see, it has a bunch of properties here and methods. One of the properties that are very often used for event objects is the target property. We will be using that. Okay, but that's good. But so far we see that as a user inputs information, the event listener on change is triggered, and it calls out our event handler, which we called handle change. So let's handle that. Okay, so I'm gonna comment this out here, and what I want to do here is that each time the user presses a button or starts inputting their information, this is going to be triggered here. This event handler is going to be triggered, and I want to change the current state. So as they're putting information for the username as they're inputting the information, this is going to go from empty string to whatever values that or input that the user puts in. Okay, so here the way we're going to change that is we're going to use this method here, set form data, because that will change the state. So in the handle change, we'll do set form data, and we're going to spread out the current form data, whatever currently is in the form data, and in brackets I'm going to do event target. Remember, that was the property I was referring to earlier that we saw in the console, that the event object provides to us is a target, and that target object has a property called name. Okay, and this name right here refers to each input field here, or the attribute that we provided for each input field right here, the name. Okay, so let's go back there, and then the value is going to be event target value. Okay, so let me save that here. Okay, so now let's see what changed. So now I can actually type. Remember, before I couldn't type in, it was frozen, but now that I handled the event handler, I added an event handler for our listener, we can type. And also, if I do here John Doe, if you look over here, I know it's hard to see over here under username. Can I increase the size here? Okay, I can't do that here. Let me do it right here. Okay, good. All right, so here you see the username. Now pay attention to that. I'm gonna type in John. You see, JOHN, and as I'm doing that, this right here is our state. So it's putting in the information from the user. So DOE. Okay, and the same thing with email. If I do JD, you can see here under email that's in real time, it's putting that information. Good. So we see everything is working just fine. Okay, let me shrink that back up. Okay, so let's go back here. Okay, so add the event handler to on change events of input fields. Okay, so finally, at this point, as the user put in all their information, all of this state right here, component state, should start being filled in. So eventually, once the user puts in all their information, right? So like John Doe into ABC, the user is going to push this button here, sign up. Now nothing's going to happen because we haven't attached an event listener to that button. And that's what we're going to do here. So this is our form here. What I want to do here within our form tag is add on submit. And I'm going to give, and once this form is submitted, it triggers. I want a method or my event handler that I'm going to call it handle submit. This handle submit would be called, and under event handlers, I'm going to call it right here, const handle submit. This, since it's an event, it also gets the event object. And the first thing for submission we want to do is we want to do event prevent default. This would prevent the default behavior of the browser to load. Okay, and then next I want to do a console log. I want to console log whatever the current form data is in our state. Okay, so we're testing it out for the moment. Okay, so let's see over here in my console. Currently the console is empty, but I'm going to put in the information. I'm going to do, let's see, for the username, John Doe, for email, johndoe@gmail.com, password ABC. Okay, so if I press sign up, you see here in the console, this is all the information that the user provided to us, all this stuff right here. Okay, you see the username, John Doe, everything. Okay, and ABC, you couldn't see here, but this is what I put in, ABC. Okay, so this right here, this is good because now it's showing that as I press the button, sign up button, the on submit event is triggered, calling our event handler, and we console log this information here. And this is the information that we're going to need to prep to send off to the server. All right, so we took care of that. So now we know that. So now we are at a good position right now, because now in this handle submit, this is within here, this is where we're going to start making our HTTP requests and take the information that's in currently the user provided to us that's stored in the state to have to send off to the server. All right, so that's it for now. So until see you in the next video.